Deep dive time. We wrap up the NFC West. Teddy, this is not good on paper. The Seahawks win total is 8. Last year, 9-7 straight up, 6-9-1 against the spread, 10-6 to the under, plus 8 turnover differential, which was top 10 in the league. Russell Wilson had an NFL or MVP type season. I think he had 34 touchdowns and only 11 interceptions. He's running for his life every play. Russell Wilson led the team in rushing yards with 500 plus rushing yards, and it wasn't even close to the guy behind him. So I don't know, what are we on, year 3 here, where we're talking about a bad offensive line and no running game to speak of? And I wouldn't say he has strong weapons either. I think he's made Baldwin and some of these other guys. And Richardson left too. One weapon he thought he was going to have. A lot of people didn't like the move because of the offensive line and thought maybe he was going to go in the 3rd round. They did take Penny, the stud running back who does it all and did it all at San Diego State. But all these guys left. They're getting old on defense. They haven't fixed the offensive line, Teddy. Should be the 3rd best team in this division.
Yeah, it certainly feels like the window for championship contention in Seattle is over. That being said, they still have a head coach who's been pretty darn good at getting his team to overachieve. And they still have a quarterback that, as you mentioned, had an MVP caliber season last year. Russell Wilson personally accounted for more than 80% of the Seahawks offense last year. You talked about the 586 rushing yards. That was more than 300, more than anyone else on the team had. No one else on the team had 300 yards. 300 rushing yards.
Jeez.
No one else but the QB had that on Seattle. He led the NFL with those 34 touchdown passes. But 20 of the 34 touchdowns came to Paul Richardson or Luke Wilson or Jimmy Graham. They're all gone now. And you talk about him running for his life. Russell Wilson took 43 sacks last year. That's the 5th straight year of 40-plus sacks for a guy who isn't that big and who isn't that young anymore necessarily. Obviously, there are some big red flags when it comes to the Seahawks this season. It all comes, it starts with personnel issues. Yeah, they got some guys in, but boy, they lost a lot of top-flight talent, Pauly.
Jimmy Graham to the Packers, Richardson to the Redskins, Paul, and then Sheldon goes to the Vikings. Luke Wilson's gone. Rawls is gone. Bennett was traded. Sherman goes to San Francisco. Avrill's a free agent. My God, this could be bad. Plus, the other guys are old as well. Lane is gone. So, it's ugly, Teddy. Where's the skill position talent that guys are going to stretch the field and make some big plays? Who scares you on this offense?
That's a really good question because the answer is not that many guys are going to really freak you out on the Seahawks offense. That being said, one thing that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll have been able to do is to create something out of nothing. When you're talking about the guys who've been key for Seattle in the receiving corps over the last 5 years, we're not talking about guys, with the exception of Jimmy Graham, who came in with a bunch of hype. We're talking about later round draft choices, lesser tier guys who went to Seattle and found a rhythm with their QB. But, on paper, there's certainly some issues. Jaron Brown, they bring in from Arizona. They bring in Ed Dixon, was pretty much a bust everywhere he's been. But at tight end, he's someone who, at least has some potential to make some noise. But you talk about the offensive issues. I'm really concerned about this defense. I can't, understate, when you lose a Michael Bennett and a Sheldon Richardson and a Richard Sherman and a Jeremy Lane and a Deshaun Shade and a Cliff Averill, that's a lot of talent. Last year was the first time since 2011 this defense didn't finish in the top 5, Pauly. You lose that type of talent, and you wonder, is this defense still anywhere near the elite level that they were when Seattle was contending for Super Bowls?
Here's the money quote. Walking out the door, Richard Sherman said, basically, Carroll's message is stale, and he's using the same material, and it gets old after a while. So all that rah-rah stuff and all the speeches, they've heard it time and time and time again, and he keeps repeating it, and guys have tuned him out. I know he's with the 49ers, but that's what Sherman said on the way out. That could be cause for concern. I tell you, it's a big ask, Teddy, in this division to go 9-7 and try to cash an over ticket. The schedule is tough as well. And then we went over the Rams earlier, which I think the Rams are the class of this division. I think $1.60 to win the division. They play the NFC North and the AFC West, 2 extra games, Dallas at home and at Carolina. And out of the gates, it's at Denver, at Chicago, Dallas at home, and at Arizona. So 3 of the first 4 are on the road.
Yeah, but when you look at that schedule, it's not a schedule you'll say the Seahawks can get off to a 4-0 start there. It wouldn't shock anybody to see Seattle win those ball games. Arizona's not supposed to be that good. Denver's lined at 7. Chicago's lined 6.5, 7. And they get Dallas at home, a team of, who I'm not convinced is going to be any good. So there's a decent chance Seattle gets off to a solid start this year. And especially, you look at the rookie class. You talked about, bringing in Rashad Penny. I like the third rounder and fourth rounder in Green and Disley, but you're not necessarily talking about impact players from a team that needs some impact players. But getting back to the schedule, this is, from a strength of schedule standpoint, based on this year's season win totals, this is a tough schedule, much tougher than the one they had last year. In fact, from a percentage standpoint, only Arizona had a bigger percentage jump from last year to this year in toughness of opponents compared to Seattle. It's a much tougher slate than they had a season ago. Like the show? Help us keep the lights on. Please make sure to comment, share, and subscribe to all the Sportsbook Review videos. Thanks so much. Best of luck. Enjoy the game.